from Abuja.
Economic diversification, Emefiele and the Ministry of Finance identify that the shortcut to agri development in Nigeria is to go back to basics.
When you export more than you import, what happens to your currency is that it will be growing. But when you import more than you export, your currency will be going down.
The central bank, through its activities, directly or indirectly, influence the realization of access to affordable, sufficient finance and the competitiveness of agriculture, both in the local and international market. Meaning that the central bank has a role to play in our agriculture being competitive. And competitive meaning that when we produce it, we can sell it at prices that will make our farming a business.
The ultimate goal of farming is not the growing of crops, but the cultivation and perfection of human beings. This was said by Masanobu Fukuoka in one of his books, The One Straw. So with agriculture, we don't only seek to cultivate the land, we seek to cultivate character in every one of us as a people who would fend for themselves, fend for their families, and bring forth a sense of hope for even their children. And with that said, I'd like to bring up to take the opening statement this afternoon the chairman and the CEO at the Economic and Business Strategies Limited. He was Chief Economic Advisor to President Olusegun Obasanjo. He was the CEO of the National Planning Commission, and he was a professor of economics at the University of Texas at Dallas, with branches in the United States and America and Abuja. He has the passion to help eradicate poverty across Africa, and that is why this idea came up in the first place. Ladies and gentlemen, help me put your hands together as we welcome Professor Magnus Kpakol.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Godwin Emefiele Central Bank has, in my opinion, done a good job and did a pretty good job, especially when we were in recession about a couple quarters ago, using agricultural development to try to help the country come out of recession. As you all know, the central bank has at its disposal various tools that it uses to run monetary policy and to assist the economy to be stable. Now, why agriculture? And if you were looking at monetary policy, why would you want to connect agriculture with anything to do with monetary policy? Because of the experience that we had in the last couple of quarters, maybe 3-4 quarters if we want to go back that far, we will see that we got to a point where the Naira suffered a little bit against the US dollar. And we started to look at things that could be done to rescue the Naira. One of the things that we looked at quickly as a country was agriculture. Because with a country as big as ours, nearly 200 million people, you've got a lot of mouths to feed. And as a result, we have been importing quite a lot of food stuff from outside the country, and that had put a drain on our reserves. And when you have a drain on the reserves, then you will not have money or resources to get basic tools and machinery for the production of goods. And so it became imperative for the central bank to support activities in agriculture. Many of you are familiar with the so-called Anchor Borrowers Program, where small-scale farmers are connected to larger companies to give them an anchor and stability and a ready market so that whatever they produce on their farms can be sold for stabilizing their incomes or their revenues. And so in the spirit of our Red in Africa strategy, we are ready for an exciting meeting. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm Magnus Kpakol, and we're ready to get started.
Talking agric is the best that can happen to any country. I became so elated this morning when I saw that we have over 70% of participants being under the age of 30. It means that the organizer has the interest of a better tomorrow for Nigeria. All of us know that the country is so blessed that we have an arable land of 81 million hectares. Most countries cannot boast of that. Out of the 91 million hectares that we have in the country, 81 million of it is arable. We have rich soil. We have good rainfall pattern. That's why we became lazy. It's only in this country that you plant and you are expecting rain to come up. In most of other clans, you have to do what you call intensive farming, which you supply both the nutrients and the water to your plants. Also, we have a case of political intermingling with our agricultural development. Africa we've been able to feed ourselves without the colonial masters. So, which means that we got it wrong somewhere. That we are still at the first generation of development industrially. This came up because we did not think about how do we add value to our agricultural production. If not recently, that government is now focusing on agric. It was when oil was gotten around 1956-57 in Olobiri that the government abandoned agric. The fowl that lays the best egg was abandoned because it was the agric money, the pyramid in the north, the cocoa, the rubber, mention them, the rubber. It is the money that government had from export of those trade that they used to build the oil. But immediately free money is coming that you call oil money. Agric was abandoned and it was taken down. That if you call yourself a student of agriculture, you'll be ashamed as at then. But we thank God for the current government that is reviving and revitalizing the sector. That as of last week, we launched the Agripreneurship Club in University of Abuja. Those students have started producing flour, yam flour. They've started producing maize flour. They've started producing and they are packaging and they are selling. That is the hope for the future. If you learn it at early age, by the time you graduate, you'll be focused. You'll not be looking for any white collar job that is not green.
So I want to go to primary aspect and what you seated here, what you can start doing on your own and why you should go into the business of agriculture. One of the challenges we have in Africa, also in Nigeria, is we always believe we're entitled to something. That the government needs to provide this, government needs to provide that. I always say this, that my own money is not with the government. My money is in my bank account. And my account officer is responsible. So if 1 naira is missing, I will call my account officer, what is happening? So our own money is for the government, that is our money. But I'm more concerned about my money than our money. So when we talk about the incentive, government give this, government give that, 80% or 90% of the people here, when they were asking questions, want the government to provide this, the government to provide that. Okay, so but I want us to know that we can start up something even without the government. Al-Mazrui is an Islamic writer, but he has taught the whole of Africa. He said something that the biggest problem we face in Africa is because we are so blessed in Africa. We are so blessed with good climate and weather condition. We are so blessed with good and fertile soil, and that made us not to think, because they said necessity is the mother of invention. Al-Mazrui said something that another problem we have in Africa is that we produce what we don't consume, and we consume what we don't produce. And that is the biggest problem we have. We are so much attached with foreign products. If you say this one is made in Nigeria, somebody will tell, I beg you, we want the foreign one. And that is why our Naira is going down. And thank God for this administration. Sometimes we give them some kudos for some of the policies, they are bringing forth. What we just need majorly is implementation. So the challenge we are facing is not just the government, our own mindset. When the question was asked, are youth interested in agriculture? Sometimes, if I was to answer, I'll tell you no. And you don't need to blame the youth for that. You blame our parents for that also. What they taught us when we were growing up. The thing is, go to school, come out, get good grade, and get a good job. That's what they told us then. They didn't lie to us, but because during their own time, it's industrial age. You go to school, you come out, you get a good job. But now, you go to school, you come out, there's no even job for you. So what we need to do now is go to school, come out, and create the good job. And when you are in school, you should be learning how to start up something. And there's no business I can tell you to start up like the business of agriculture. The Eco Bridge, Niger Bridge, Kacha Bridge was built with agric money. Those days, we don't have oil. What we do is granules, cocoa, and what? Palm oil, major resources. Okay, and at that time, Naira was above what? The dollar. Why that happened is just the principle of balance of payment and balance of trade. When you export more than you import, what happens to your currency is that it will be growing. But when you import more than you export, your currency will be going down. The highest and the sole thing we depend on in Nigeria to export is what? Crude oil. It can help. Imagine if we're even exporting petroleum products like AGO, PMS, engine oil, and all this. At least that would have helped build the economy. But when we export our crude oil at $80 per barrel, we import them back here. We pay more money for what's that? Subsidy. And for youth here and students here, I will want you to know the thing is in your hand. If you are above 18 years here, you should answer to yourself. I added this to the slide that dig a well before you are thirsty and plant a seed before you are hungry. Many youth here want to do a business that they will get money sharp.
The theme for our discussion today is the role of the central bank in agricultural development. I can liken this topic to the owner of a village. He plays a critical role in the village to ensure that there's food sufficiency, raw material production, and the general development of the village. His actions determine what the citizenry bring in and out of the village. To a large extent, he controls and sets the limit for the determination of prices. Every economic activity within the village is influenced by the regulations he sets within the jurisdiction. And that's the role of the central bank. Whatever everybody does, he controls it in a way. If we go a bit into our history, in the pre-independence period of our history, most of our economies in Africa, in West Africa, were described as agrarian, and they depend on agriculture. The different agroecological zones support the production of different crops, be it cash or for food. The cash crops were mainly those that serve as raw material for industry in the home of the colonial masters. In fact, some cities were built around raw materials that were from Africa.
From the past up to today, agric still constitutes 70% of employment in the country. 70%, whether directly or indirectly. And that's why the government said, when do they want to diversify the economy now? The only place that we can get out of recession is to go back to agric. They did that successfully, and in less than 6 months, Nigeria got out of recession. The agric insurance, NAIC, was established to protect the farmer. Because why most banks don't want to give farmer money is that they know how dangerous. If Kwela bird come into your rice farm, you know what it will do. If Sodoptera exempta, the army worm, come into your farm, you know what it will do. The advent of climate change and a host of other problem, if they come, who protects the money that they have given to you? The CBN established Nigerian Agricultural Insurance Corporation to insure farmers. I think it's because we have paucity of knowledge, and because when we did validation of NISA Agricultural Value Chain Development, fortunately I was part of the associate consultants that went around the country. We find out that even most farmers did not know that they can access insurance for their products. There's no place in the world that when you have any business, you will not insure it. So in farming, for farmers to be protected, CBN created NAIC. You can see as old as 1987. They are still functioning. There's no place where you don't have them. The growth of GDP. I want us to take note of this. Agric was responsible to 60% before oil came in of our gross domestic product. But immediately we saw oil in 1970s, thereof 75, it fell up to getting to 17%. But as of last year, it has risen to about 30-something% now.
Agriculture is not the fastest way to be rich, but it's the surest way to get out of poverty. Want to get out of poverty? Go into farming business. I did not say go into farming, no. I said go into farming business. They are two different things. Some people are farming, but they are not applying the business mindset in farming. Though I attended the seminar, I told them something that you don't dash people money from a product from farm. Maybe you are in farming and somebody visited you. He said, take 2 corn, go and cook it. The person will say, thank you. You are killing the business. You encourage people, come to my farm, come and buy. If you have to dash somebody, you pay from your own pocket to the business. How much you can make from snail? A titina species of snail lay between 200 to 500 eggs 3 times in a year. You see how much you can multiply from agriculture. What will it cost you to plant tomatoes? I think we have a lot of seed outside there in case you want to see the seed or you also want to buy some of those seed. What will it cost to plant watermelon? Marry that watermelon in 60 days time you are harvesting. 60 days. The tertiary production. We're talking about being a broker. You may not have farm, you may not have money, but it can be a broker. A broker is young kaswa. Understand? Doing a young kaswa business, right? You just stay close to the market. You have the information of the farms. You know the farmers and their product, the quantity of product they have. Now you look for people that do what, that are buying the product. What you do as a broker is to link them together.
And therefore, our various agricultural development strategies have been hinged on the dependency syndrome. Up to today, our countries still depend upon the production of these commodities that become raw material for our masses. Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana produce almost about 60% of the total production of cocoa in the world. But none of them do even process even half of it. It means we are still producing for our masses. But in contrast, the production of our food crops, we're not giving much attention. If you go into, for example, Nigeria here, I know about NIFO. I know about institutions that were set up to undertake research into the development of cash crops. With over-reliance of operatives in the agricultural sector on nature for their vocation, the production becomes highly unpredictable, making it very risky to invest in. Many of our farmers have been depending upon the rain. So anytime there's a failure, the rains fail, then there's a consequent crop failure. And therefore it becomes very risky for people, for many landing institutions to lend into agriculture. This must change. Access to credit is therefore made very expensive. What is needed in the agricultural sector in terms of financing is we need long-term financing so that people in agriculture can develop facilities which might be used over many years. Those in crop production need money for them to be able to construct irrigation channels. Those in animal production need money to develop their stock, because it might take some time before they will get to profit levels. But because of the risky nature, many of our lending institutions find it very repressive to lend to them.
We have always tried to ensure that this lecture series is aimed at the future of the country. And therefore, we've tried to make sure that we get as many students as possible to be a part of it, as the future leaders of the country, to be aware of the kinds of things that would need to be done in order for Nigeria to be more globally competitive.